unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. Ian, how are you?
I'm doing really good. Staying warm. It got real cold real quick, at least cold for Florida perspectives down here.
Like, how cold is it there?
50, like 55, 58. Yeah, it got cold
good.
quick. So not, I know anybody up north is like, oh, that's summer to us. And I was like, well, this is our winter.
Well, yeah, but it's also what I don't think people realize is because of the humidity in Florida, it actually is a lot colder.
Yeah.
When it gets like down in the 50s and 40s, because of the humidity, it makes it feel like it's, you know, sometimes in like the 30s, because it just gets like, I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know the scientific like versing of it, but it's because of the humidity. It's a huge difference. It's like other states, it's not as humid. It's like, I don't know, 50% humidity, while Florida's usually around like 80% humidity, even into the, you know, the winter time. So
yeah.
Okay, let's get into this. So we are Hater Radio, like I said. The regular season is officially over. We have now started the postseason, and this week of the postseason is the conference championship games, which we have on this handy dandy chart here. I have, which shows, you know, we have, you know, the Mountain West Championship game on Friday, Boise State versus UNLV, Friday at 8 p.m. The AAC, Tulane versus Army, Friday at 8 p.m. as well, same time. Big 12 on Saturday at noon, Iowa State, Arizona State. And then SEC is Georgia versus Texas at 4 p.m., the usual time for SEC championship game on Saturday. Big 10 is later that night at 8. Penn State and Oregon at 8 p.m. And then the ACC championship game is Clemson and SMU at 8 o'clock on Saturday. So that is all the games that we have as far as the championship game. So let's go into each and every one of them. The first one we have is the Mountain West Championship game against Boise State and UNLV. You know, this game is really important for for Boise State, because if they win, they get into the playoff. And technically, I think UNLV still has an outside chance of getting into the playoff if they win. So it really is a de facto play-in championship game. And also, I think because Boise will only have one loss, they have a chance of getting a first-round bye, because they would be higher ranked than the Big 12 champion. And so this is a huge game for Boise. Like, not only is it you get to join the playoff mix, but then you get to be like one of the big boys and have a first round bye. I mean, that's massive. So there is a ton to play for Boise just on that alone. Then you add on the fact that Ashton Jeanty has a huge opportunity. You know, Friday night, I know the AAC will be going on as well at the same time, but I mean, I think all focus will be on Jeanty because, you know, like the Tulane Army game doesn't have as much pull because it's likely that Army, even if they win, they won't get into the playoff. So, you know, this game is more important. And then Jeanty's going to have all the eyeballs on him and people watching. And if he puts up like 200, 250, maybe even, God willing, if he puts up 300-yard game, like a 300-yard game, 3 TD game, that, I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't solidify him as a Heisman, you know, winner at that point, because that is one of the biggest games ever. And then not only that, to be in a championship game against a really good opponent, you know, I don't know how you would argue that against it. But let's get into some of the stats. Boise and UNLV had already played each other earlier this year. Boise won 29-24. Hodge Malik Williams had a decent game, 179 yards and 105 on the ground. Jeanty only 128. But I don't really remember this game as much. Ian, do you recall this game earlier in the year? What the breakdown at all? Do you recall that?
Yeah, so I do remember. I remember watching the game, or at least when I could. I do remember Boise State. They looked like they were going to be in trouble because it was in Las Vegas, and it was and they did a good job containing Genty. So that was something I noticed, and I said that's a pretty good matchup for UNLV if this is going to be the Mountain West Championship, which is a repeat from last year. That they did a good job containing, at least as good as they could. I mean, Genty still had over 100 yards, but I mean, for him, that's pretty like kind of down. But the fourth quarter for Boise State to take the lead back. UNLV got off to a fast start, and we've seen with Williams, the quarterback of UNLV, how good this offense can be and how athletic it can be, and that could be problems for Boise State. Now, though, it's in Boise, it's at Albertsons Field, and doing the history since both teams joined the Mountain West in 2011. Boise State has won every single matchup that they have played. Now, keep in mind that this is when there were divisions and stuff like that. But Boise State has still won every single division or Mountain West matchup with UNLV. Last time UNLV beat Boise State was in 1976 when they were part of the WAC.
Wow.
It's been So there's a lot of history. Now, it's not a long history of games. There's, I think, like 14 matchups, but this is definitely going to be a really interesting game because this is as close to a win and you're in for a group of 5 team. Because I do believe if UNLV does pull this off, they've got a strong case to maybe leapfrog some teams because they would have the 2 losses, but beating Boise State is huge. Their one loss was to already Boise State,
number 1 team.
Yeah. And then, Boise State's only losses to Oregon. And UNLV's only losses are to Syracuse, and they only lost that by a field goal.
Yeah,
and close. They barely lost to Boise State. So there's a good chance whoever wins this is in.
Yeah, I feel it is true because, both of those losses that UNLV has are very strong losses. Both between those 2 teams, I think it's 4 losses. And then if you look at Oregon's undefeated. So that's obviously the best loss you could have on anybody's schedule. And, I really think you're right. I think the winner of this gets in. I don't know if UNLV will get a first round bye if they're in, but I know that they will definitely get in if they win. So this is, like you said, a playoff, what would it even be called? A play-in game?
I was going to play-in divisional matchup.
Yeah, I guess the only other way to describe it, because they have something like that in baseball where it's the
wild card round.
Yeah, well, not even that. It's before that. If it's tied near the end of the season.
Tiebreaker.
Yeah, you got a tiebreaker game. It's game 163 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's essentially that because the conference game is technically an extension of the regular season. I think technically, because I think you even get credited on your conference record for the win or the loss on your at the end of the year. Okay. I'm just looking at the stats with UNLV. Haj Malik, after he took over when Sluka left, he put up pretty decent numbers. Ricky White for them, over 1,000 yards. Jadane Thomas, their running back, pretty good numbers as well, 833 yards. And then Haj Malik Williams had 768 of his own on the ground, and a couple other running backs. Yeah, they have a really good run game, UNLV. And I know that because we've talked about it before, the go-go offense. They definitely are very versatile, and their offensive coordinator is very creative. I'm surprised he hasn't been getting a lot of hype for even a low-level job. I mean, honestly, right now, if anywhere, which I don't want this to happen, but if anywhere he would go would probably be UCF, because UCF could definitely take on someone like him because he's a coordinator, and it would be like definitely a step up from coordinator to head coach. But I don't know if he wants to do that because he could probably right now he's probably just waiting it out because he might even like maybe he's gonna like try to go be a coordinator at like a better school because then that way he can like parlay that into like an even bigger head coaching job once he like does well there. Who knows? I don't know what his thought process is, but regardless, I like UNLV's offense a lot. I think they're going to put up a decent amount of points. Boise's going to have to play keep away, like you've always said. You know, like that's one of the keys with one of these good offenses. You got to control the possession. And I think Boise can with a run game like they have, but also Genty can score quickly. So that changes the narrative a little bit. I think Genty, though, has a really good game. I'm going to say I wanted to say 303 TDs, but I don't think that's possible. I think that would be kind of crazy. But honestly, this is like there's some times where like it lines up like this, where like a Heisman like front runner just has like the spotlight, like everything geared towards them. And it's just like one of those games where it seems like it's that, and he could just have like a monster game, which, you know, we'll see, you know, Friday night, but I don't know because UNLV is a good team and they're good defensively as well. You know, Jackson Woodard, their linebacker is really good. So I'm going to say UNLV scores like 28, and I'm going to say Boise scores like maybe 34, and it's going to be close. Like maybe Boise has the ball last and just scores a late touchdown, and then like, you know, basically with no time left. What do you got, Ian?
So the one kind of deciding factor, because these teams are both very even, have a very strong defense and a pretty solid run game. But UNLV, the go-go offense, is more predicated to being mobile and on the run. Their passing offense hasn't been as successful this year. They're not, in terms of Mountain West Conference rankings, they're not near the top in passing offense.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Boise State, not, you know, this isn't going to be like they're going to be playing the air raid offense. But if Madsen has to throw and make a 3rd and long play, that is something they can still do. I feel like if Boise State takes the run away from UNLV, that's going to cripple UNLV. But if you take Genty out the best you possibly can with that,
yeah,
you still have Madsen able to make enough plays where I think Boise State would be safe. I think it's going to be a close one, and I think Boise State's going to play keep away, but I think they get enough to keep some distance. I'm going to go Broncos winning. A close one, I'm going to go 27-23.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, the weather is going to play a huge factor in this game because if it's, you know, UNLV plays in a dome and, you know, I don't know what their last 2 or 3 games have been like, but I don't know if they've been out in the weather like this because it's going to be pretty cold. Even if it snows or not, it's going to be probably in the 20s. And like, that's that's hard to deal with when you're not used to that. So let's move on to the next game, which is the AAC championship game, which is Army and Tulane on Friday night at the same time, 8 p.m. You know, this Tulane team, you know, that loss last week against Memphis really kind of, you know, messed everything up because they were on the verge of potentially being right there with Boise State. So it was like kind of neck and neck at that point. If they had beaten Army, you know, they would be vying with Boise to see who gets in. And then there would have been a potential of the Big 12 champion not even getting in at all, which that would have been crazy because then it would have been the AAC champion and the Mountain West champion getting in. And man, the Big 12 would have probably lost their collective minds if that would have happened. But it doesn't happen because Tulane loses to Memphis last week, setting up this game with Army. But I actually like Army a lot in this game because I feel like they're good defensively enough to be able to do what like Memphis did to Tulane last week. And I think they can keep them in like a 24-20 game score-wise, like their score. And then if Army can score like 28, maybe 30, that they can get this one. Because I like Daly a lot. You know, he's got a really good command of the offense. I know that Notre Dame game really like looked really bad, but they looked good last week against UTSA. And I think they're very capable of beating this Tulane team. And I think that would be a surprise for everyone because I think people just think, oh, Tulane's going to win this one easily. And I don't know what the line is, but I'm sure they're favored. But I like Army a lot in this one. Like I said, if they can get some turnovers, which Mensa had some last week, and also those fumbles on big plays, those are the difference in the game. And I think Army's defense is good enough to cause turnovers. They've done it all year for the most part. They did it last week against UTSA. So I'm going to say Army wins probably probably 28-24. What do you got, Ian?
So for the American Conference statistics, defense is a big thing, and Tulane has an incredible defense as well. But it's one thing to note that Army, they're going to run the ball. They have been passing more, but that's their bread and butter, certainly with a quarterback like Daly. Army, for perspective, has been only giving up 103 yards a game on the ground, which is a very good statistic because that means you're forcing guys to throw it to a very tough secondary.
Yeah.
Tulane, on the other hand, while good, has been giving up 20 yards more, 123. And that 20 yards is the difference between the red zone and a touchdown. So that is going to be something that Tulane needs to fix. But we know Army plays keep away, and they run downhill on teams. And Memphis kind of already did that to Tulane. Tulane can't be sitting around waiting to play catch up because Army's not going to give them time. I feel like this is a tough one because I feel like Tulane if they get enough time, can pull out a win, but I don't think Army's going to give them the chance. I think Army plays keep away, gets enough third down stops that they put some distance. I'm going to go with Army winning. I'll go with the lone score. I'll go 24-20.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it feels like it's going to be like that kind of score. And, Army, I don't know. I just feel like they've got it. I feel like they've got enough to be able to win this game. So someone, Mr. Cherry Coke, he's just saying that Liberty Bowl, Texas Tech versus Florida, that would be
official?
No, because it's not out until Sunday after all the other games are decided. But that would be interesting. I would love that actually, because that's Texas Tech is a good offense, and that would be a good challenge for Florida. So, and I like Liberty Bowl because it's different. Florida usually does like a lot of the Florida bowl games.
Yeah, selfishly, I'm hoping they're playing the Gasparilla Bowl so I can go to that.
Let me see. He's also asking, can I share my bowl projections playoff picture, Doc? Well, let me see. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can get it in time because we're not going to be done. How about you send it to me, Mr. Cherry Coke? Send it to me, and then I can share it the day of, because we'll have a longer show. This show is not going to be as long because we're not going to be there's not much else to talk about. We'll talk more about the playoffs on Sunday before the selection show. So yeah, send it to me. It's haterradio1@gmail.com. You can send that there. Okay, so let's move on to I can just throw down the big projections. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Actually, right now, if you can, let's see if you can. Let me see if you can respond to this. All right, he's got Sun Bowl, Clemson versus Arizona State. That'd be interesting.
That'd be good.
Music City Bowl, LSU versus Michigan. Yeah, I mean, LSU definitely. Let's see.
They had the edge in that one.
Yeah, Citrus Bowl, South Carolina and Illinois. I like that.
That'd be good.
Dude, that South Carolina team, I like them a ton. I really do. Ooh, Gator Bowl, Miami versus Ole Miss. Wow.
That would be fun. Cam Ward versus Jackson Dart. That would be, if they don't opt out, that would be fun.
Oh my God, that's what's going to happen. I know that Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, all those guys are going to opt out. Las Vegas Bowl, Arkansas versus Washington. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd like to see Green go up against Washington. That'd be fun. Let's see what else we got here.
We don't got to worry about USF. That one's already decided. Why do they got to?
Yeah.
Again, selfishly, I'm like, man, you couldn't do like the Cure Bowl or something. Or
Yeah, I
Orlando?
know.
I can't go to Hawaii.
All right, he's got another one. He says Holiday Bowl, USC versus Vautech. I like that.
Yeah.
ReliaQuest Bowl, Missouri versus Iowa.
That's the old Outback Bowl.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't know if I just not the biggest fan of Missouri. And then Iowa's offense has been better this year, but I like this one, Birmingham Bowl, Vanderbilt versus James Madison. That actually would be kind of fun.
That would be real good.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, if Vandy does go to the Outback Bowl, I'm gonna see if I can hit that one.
Yeah, that would be fun. Honestly, just seeing
ReliaQuest Bowl,
Pavia, yeah. First Responder Bowl, Army versus BYU. I like that.
Yeah.
That's similar offenses, so that'd be kind of fun. Mayo Bowl, Georgia Tech versus Minnesota. I think Tech is a better team than Minnesota, but Minnesota plays a lot of games really close, so maybe they got a chance there. Pop-Tarts Bowl, Syracuse versus TCU.
I think Syracuse would.
I think Syracuse would blow them out. Yeah. Cure Bowl, NC State versus Marshall. I've not been the biggest fan of NC State all year. They've kind of really been a huge letdown, considering they had Grayson McCall coming into the year and things were very, just kind of fell apart. Pinstripe Bowl, Louisville versus Rutgers. I'd like to see Louisville finish off the year. So yeah, that's a good one for them. It would be very cold, which sucks for them, but Military Bowl, Navy versus Duke. Yeah, I like that matchup. Those are two good teams. I like Malik Murphy a lot. Sports Bowl, Pittsburgh versus Bowling Green. Yeah. I mean, see, we have so many bowl games. It's kind of ridiculous. But, this is what it is. Let's see if Mr. Cherry Coke, are you almost to playoff time? Let's see. Alamo Bowl, Baylor versus Washington State, Independence Bowl, Tulane versus Liberty. Yeah, I think some of these are like projection wise, I think they're already pretty much out there that these bowl games want these teams. I'm not for sure. Maybe that's where I have if everyone wins. Okay. Well, yeah, go ahead, shoot out your playoffs real quick, and then we'll move on because we've got to go through these conference championship games.
Used to be easy when we only had 3 conference championship games.
Okay, so he's got Rose Bowl is Tennessee or Ohio. Oh, the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State versus Oregon. Fiesta is going to be Iowa State, Penn State game versus Boise State, and the Peach is going to be Alabama, Notre Dame winner versus SMU. Sugar is going to be Indiana, Georgia winner versus Texas. He's got Tennessee. Yeah. Okay. He's got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I like these a lot. I'm still
at the mercy of the committee though, and you don't know what these idiots are going to pick.
Yeah, that's true. Cause it's going to be wild the next couple of days. Cause it's there's no guarantee that SMU wins, which we'll get to, but, or even, that, Georgia, cause if Georgia has 3 losses, it's what's the difference between them and Alabama and South Carolina and
Ole Miss losses, I guess. If I will say if Georgia doesn't get in, but Bama stays in with 3 losses, I get Bama beat Georgia, but you can't tell me them losing to Vandy and blown out by Oklahoma is better than losing to Ole Miss. And what was Georgia's other one? Bama, Ole Miss, and then the SEC championship. There's no way you could tell me that's better than what Bama went through.
Yeah, that's definitely the best losses out of anybody. But then again, really only Georgia's really good win all year has basically been Texas. So
Yeah.
like,
Well, Bama's only good win was Georgia.
well, no, they beat South Carolina and they
They did.
beat LSU and they beat Missouri. So they have some good wins. Georgia, who else did they play outside of Texas? They played Texas, Alabama. Well, see, also like they really struggled against Kentucky, and I think that's what a lot of people like fail to remember. Like that was not a good win, and they barely won that game. Like they probably should have lost that game. And but no, I feel like South Carolina, if any team were to get in that I would want in, I feel like South Carolina is a team I would want in just because of how hot they are now and the fact that they should have beat LSU. Like that clearly should have been their game. You know, the refs blew that penalty with the roughing the passer call, which was so lame. And but also I like Ole Miss a ton too, and that actually would be a team that would be very dangerous in a playoff because, you know, if you have a really good quarterback, that really can go a long way. But again, thank you, Mr. Cherry Coke. I appreciate it. If you want to chime in on Sunday, come in on Sunday and we'll take your thoughts. We're going to be early. We'll probably be like an hour and a half before the reveal for the playoff rankings. Okay, let's move on to next one we have
Big 12.
is Big 12, Arizona State and Iowa State. I mean, this game is very interesting because it's like you have these two teams where like Arizona State was like coming off really bad couple of years. You know, Ken Dillingham is like a young guy trying different things. He had Scattaboo as the like, you know, all-purpose halfback back there doing all kinds of things, like a quarterback, whatever, wildcat, all kinds of things, reverses, whatever. They were like trick play, like every other play was a trick play last year. And they played pretty well considering their limitations. But then this year, they finish off 10-2, which I don't think anybody saw coming. Their losses were to Texas Tech and to Cincinnati, which are kind of surprise losses because they looked really good against big-time opponents. They beat BYU and they beat Kansas State. You know, this Arizona State team with Sam Leavitt, with Scattaboo, the thing that they're not going to have in this game is their wide receiver, Jordan Tyson, who's out for the year. I didn't see what the injury was about, but it seems like he's done even for the playoffs. So that is a huge loss because they throw the ball a decent amount, but it's largely to him because outside of him, it's Scattaboo is the other heavy receiver wise. And then the rest of the guys are like 290 yards and less. So it's going to be real tough sledding for them to move the ball. Their wide receivers are going to have to step up. Scattaboo, 1,300 yards on the year. He's really solid. And, you know, he likely will be, I don't know. I'm thinking if they can keep him, they'll have a good shot next year of doing really well. But like, I think that he might move on transfer portal wise. And I'm hearing that the kid Tyson as well might move on too. So, which is a shame, but that's just the reality that we live in nowadays. Now, as far as Iowa State, you know, Rocco Becht, very solid quarterback, 3,000 yards on the year. They have a bevy of backs that they rely on for outage or output. Carson Hansen, Abu Sama, and Jalen Jackson, all 380 yards or more. They got a 1,000-yard receiver in Jaden Higgins. You know, this Iowa State team is very capable. They have been, you know, as outside that Texas Tech and Kansas loss, they've looked really good in every other game. They've had some close ones too with UCF and some other teams, but also, you know, Arizona State had a close one with UCF, which I'm kind of amazed that UCF like struggled in a good amount of games and then like had some like really close ones against some of the better teams in the Big 12. But regardless, I like I don't know. I mean, this is a coin flip. And most, as we get to the end of the year and you're in these playoff situations, it's going to be more coin flippy games because most of these teams are pretty evenly matched. Good quarterbacks, good offenses. I like Becht a lot. I think I like him more than Levitt. Levitt is solid though, but I think I'm going to lean towards Iowa State. I think Matt Campbell gets it done. I'm going to say the Clones get it done like probably 34 to like 27. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and this was going to be my upset pick because technically this would be the only one that counts, but it would be Iowa State because Becht has quietly had a 3,000-yard season, 20 touchdowns, solid on both ends of the board. But the other thing to note is that Iowa State's offense has actually done better in yards per game than Arizona State's done. Now, Arizona State is running on a really good winning streak, but both of the defenses are pretty aligned with each other. Arizona State only averages giving up 6 more yards than Iowa State, which is really a compliment because Iowa State's one of the best defenses in the Big 12. But Iowa State has been much better at getting, more out of first, second down situations than Arizona State has. And I feel like they'll nickel and dime it, which is what they're good at. And they're balanced enough to keep Arizona State on their toes. So I'm going to take the Cyclones winning the Big 12. I'm going to go with like let's do like a 28-20 win for Iowa State.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Iowa State is good enough to win this game because, I think like Arizona State is just getting there, but I think Iowa State has been there for a few years as far as like the players and like obviously Matt Campbell's been there a long time. So there is like more, it's more solid ground. And I think they're ready for this. I think this is, but it's also Iowa State's like first real moment in the sun like ever because they've never been to a Big 12 championship game and they've never won more than 10 games or even 10 games in the history of their program. So this is a huge step for them. They have the chance to get to 11 games, 11 wins, and then maybe even into the playoff. And who knows if they get in the playoff, anything is possible. And, you start winning games and who knows, you could end up, at least into the semis. Okay. Moving on to next game we have is SEC championship game, Georgia and Texas. Now it's a rematch of the game earlier this year. That was a 30-15 game in Austin where Georgia really dominated the first half to the point that Texas had a huge hole to climb out of and wasn't able to do it. They got the game within a 1-score game. It was an 8-point game in the second half, and then Georgia just took control there at the end. This Georgia team with, Carson Beck, Carson Beck just is a turnover machine lately, and I feel like they were lucky to survive that Georgia Tech game, and if they had lost to Georgia Tech coming into this game, they would have needed to win this game to get in the playoffs. So they got lucky winning that game, but now it's like they don't have to win this game to get in. They're likely to get in regardless. So I don't know, just Beck with how bad he's been playing lately, because their offense looked just average for most of that game against Georgia Tech. And I feel like Texas is capable of doing that to them. I think because of all the mistakes that Quinn Ewers did in the first game, that really led to where the game was. This game is in Atlanta, so it's an advantage for Georgia there, obviously close to home and fan-wise, but maybe the Texas fans really travel really well. It's a first time in the SEC championship game, which is the first time in their since they joined, which is pretty remarkable, first year in, and they're already in the SEC championship game. But no, I feel like Texas will be better in this game. I think that Sarkisian will learn from his mistakes and he will put Ewers in a better situation. The only thing I'm worried about with Ewers is the fact that his ankle is not 100%, and it kind of limited him last week. So you might see Arch Manning in this game as well at spots. So, I feel like Georgia's defense, though, is very strong. Even though they kind of got worked last week against Georgia Tech, they're still strong enough to compete and to keep them in the game. I think like I said, if they can limit the mistakes, Texas, that they can stay keep some momentum here instead of being like they were like basically shut out. I think they were shut out in that first half. They cannot do that again. If they do that again, then Georgia's easily going to win this game. But I don't think that's going to happen here. But I'm going to go with Texas winning this one. I'm going to say Texas wins like 27 to like 20. What do you got, Ian?
So one thing to note, I've always said this, when teams rematch, statistically, it has been the second time around, the loser wins out.
Yeah.
A couple examples would be, famously for us as Gator fans, 1996, lost to Florida State, blew them out in the Sugar Bowl. Alabama and Georgia in 2022 or 22. Their rematch. Bama beat them in the SEC championship, and then Georgia won the national championship against them.
Yeah.
So, and there's a million other examples, but that has been the statistic of it. And you definitely learn from this. And I think with Sarkisian in this team is that regardless of if you have Ewers or Manning starting, you need to simplify that passing attack. Is that they were trying way too many home run plays way too early. Make it short, manageable, 4 or 5 yard, maybe routes or drags to make sure you're moving forward and not going for everything all at once. The other thing to note too is that they did not capitalize on those turnovers. Beck still threw 3 interceptions that game. If he does that again, Texas is not going to let him off the hook of that one.
Yeah.
Georgia is going to need to be playing almost flawlessly. They have to be turnover free. The problem with that is that Texas still leads the SEC in defense with points per game and yards per game. They only allow on average 11 points a game. So that is something where the decision making of Beck is going to be really crucial. I feel like Texas adjusts, and even if Georgia just sells out against the passing game, you still have a very strong running attack that we saw against A&M that can at least average enough yards to make it manageable. And I think Texas gets it done. I think Texas wins it. They maybe get out to a quick start, but Georgia, if they're playing being a second half team, they can't count on that again against Texas. I feel like if any team is in a hole, like a 15-point hole on either side, that's going to be the game because there's no way they're going to let them back into an SEC championship. But I'm going to go with the Longhorns winning. I'm going to go with a 28-21 win.
Nice. Okay. Next game we have is the Big Ten championship between another first-timer, Oregon, going up against Penn State. This is a very coin flippy game. Like if there's ever been a coin flippy game, this is definitely one. Oregon's undefeated. Penn State has that one loss to Ohio State. And I will say, like, that has been the huge, like, drawback of James Franklin is the fact that he's been so good for, a decade, but he loses to Ohio State, Michigan, loses the Big Ten championship game stuff. So he's like had real problems with big games. This is a huge game because I think they get in regardless, but it's first round bye on the line and a Big Ten championship. I think, the offense has to be ready. You got to have Drew Allar ready, but I've never been the biggest fan of Drew Allar. I mean, I've talked about it for the last 2 years. The kid underwhelms me in a major way. And he is 71% completion percentage, but he's only got 2,600 yards. So, like, it's not a ton. His touchdowns is only 18. So he doesn't have a ton of statistic-wise to really, like, sway me. Their run game, though, is really good. It's a two-headed attack with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, so they can move the ball. I do like their offensive coordinator. I can't remember his name. He's the guy that was at Kansas before. Do you remember his name? I can't. It doesn't matter, but I can't remember his name. But he's very good, and they've gotten quite better this year than they have been in years past. The one thing that I do like a lot about Penn State's offense is Tyler Warren, who has nearly 1,000 yards at the tight end position, 81 catches, just a monster year. That guy is definitely destined for the NFL. Like, I would not doubt that he has a really good career in the NFL. He's just very athletic for how big he is. And, just a fast guy and catches like everything that comes his way. I saw him in the Penn State USC game in person, and he just had a monster game. And just, I feel like if they can utilize him, they'll have a good shot here. But again, Oregon is just really good. They have so many weapons, with Jordan James, with Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart. Like, there's just it's a bevy of riches, and they should be able to throw the ball pretty substantially. But I know Penn State's defense is good enough to hold them in check a little bit. But Oregon's been able to move the ball on everyone. They move the ball on Ohio State as well. Oregon's defense is strong, so maybe they're going to be able to make some stops on Alar. I don't know. This game's a coin flip. I want to hear your opinion on the score and your other thoughts before I give mine.
So the way I told this, because yes, these teams are very even. But I will, especially if you go into like who's leading the Big Ten in the certain statistics, they're both neck and neck with each other. But the one thing, when I look at that, I look at the schedules and who's got the deal breaker there. And the one outlier is Ohio State, that matchup. But there's a similarity between the two. Both of them played Ohio State when they were the home team, and it was a primetime matchup. Well, not for Penn State, but it was like, the game of the year for them. It was like a de facto Big Ten championship before the Big Ten championship kind of game. Yeah. Both teams started out fast, but only one team was able to keep it up. Penn State had a lot going for them. Will Howard was off early. They got the pick six, and they were stopping Ohio State.
Yeah.
They couldn't build off that. When Ohio State was scoring and taking the lead back and forth with each other, Oregon was able to lock it down and still find a way to win. And I think with that, Oregon found a way to win against Ohio State. And in these big matchups, which we have seen with Dan Lanning, we haven't seen that with James Franklin. And I just don't think Penn State can very well pull it off. But I think with the experience and how Oregon handled Ohio State, they're going to have a game plan on how to handle Penn State and make sure you go after that running attack and make Alar beat you through the air. Meanwhile, with Oregon, even if you shut down Gabriel, you still got to handle the running game with James. So it's not an easy task. I feel, and Oregon's defense is just as good. They can, they've really been an underrated squad this year. So with that, I'm going to take Oregon. I think they'll win a close one, but I think they'll pull away in the end. I'm going to go Ducks winning 30-20.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time giving a total to Oregon that is commensurate to what Penn State's defense is, because in that Penn State Ohio State game, Penn State only gave up 20 points. So I feel like that is around where this score is going to be. So I'm going to say it's going to be like a 24-20 game. And I think maybe Dylan Gabriel gets like a touchdown in like the fourth quarter. And then, Penn State is driving at the end and then just can't do it, which again, I would think because Alar, I'm crapping on him, but I just don't feel like he is good enough to make the difference in these games. I don't think he'll make the difference in the playoff games, and I don't think he'll make it here. So 24-20. Okay, last game we got for conference championship weekend is ACC championship game at the same time as the Big Ten championship game, 8 o'clock. It is Clemson versus SMU. If you have not watched SMU this year, which probably you haven't because they haven't played a ton of big games outside of the BYU game and the Louisville game, this is your opportunity to see how they play because Jennings is a master back there with the offense, Kevin Jennings, and he puts up huge yardage every week. He has over nearly 3,000 yards passing, and he didn't even start every game so far this year because Preston Stone was in there at first. And then he also has, where is it? He has like 300 yards on the ground as well. So he's a monster back there. He's done quite well. He's gotten better every week. Their offense is just putting up more and more points. Brashard Smith is a stud running back. Their defense is solid. They're very opportunistic. They get turnovers and they create explosive plays. I like SMU a lot in this game. Clemson's kind of disappointed me lately. They lost to South Carolina there. I know South Carolina is really hot, so it's kind of tough, that one. But Clemson does have a really good offense. And if they can score enough to keep pace with SMU, they can stay with them. But I don't think they can. I think SMU scores a lot here. I'm going to say SMU wins like 35 to 30. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I feel like this might turn into a shootout because let's not deny still that Clemson has had a very strong offense, and Klubnik has definitely kind of revived himself. Clemson actually in total yardage ranks ahead of SMU, but with SMU's defense, they are number one in both. Actually, they're number 2 in yards allowed in the ACC and number 1 in points per game. But the one thing I think will be the determining factor is Jennings and how mobile he is. He's still a great passer, but Clemson has struggled on, with spy packages on containing a mobile quarterback like that. So I think he's going to cause issues because Clemson's defense is not going to know how to handle him. And I think SMU does gets enough points in a shootout to jump ahead of him. I think it might come down to a field goal, but I'll take the Mustangs in it. I'm going to go with a 31-28 win for SMU.
Nice. Okay. That's all the conference championship games. We will be live on Sunday. I believe the selection show is at 12 Eastern on ESPN, and we will start our show at like 10:30 Eastern on Sunday morning. So we will go over the conference championship games and the results and what happened in them. And then 2, we're going to go and do our selections for playoffs. I know most of it's already been picked, so it's a little anticlimactic, but we'll still go over that, and we'll probably discuss a little bit of stuff as we go on. And then if you want to interact with us as well, we'll keep it open so anybody can interact. But yeah, so we're excited for that. Catch us on our website for all of our articles. I'm going to have one about the Gators. Actually, last thing before we go, the Gators had a really decent recruiting class.
Finished number 11.
Yeah, they were. Well, no, it's 10th.
Oh, now it's 10th? Oh, good.
Yeah, they were 51st as of like 3 weeks ago or something like that, and then jumped all the way up to 10th, top 10, considering that Billy was about to be fired. They got the Scott Strickland gave his approval, and from that point on, the money flipped towards getting kids back on board, and they were able to get a bunch of flips. It was like, I think like 10 flips in like a 3-week span or something like that. And they got all those kids. And like I said, it was the 10th best class, a ton of DBs, safeties, corners. They got 2 really good wide receivers, a really good running back, some offensive linemen, some edge rushers. So like overall, it's a really good class. It moves it forward because it could have been a lot worse. It was going to be very bad if they didn't figure things out. And it's, it's actually not bad. So that is the show. You can reach us on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, X, TikTok, all Hater Radio. Type in Hater Radio, comes right up. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yeah, it's at YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. It's at G_Gator_G. One last thing, if you guys want another great noon matchup, check out the MAC championship. Miami and Ohio, Battle of the Bricks. Both of them are their biggest rivals. Rematch this year. That should be a good one. So check out that game if you want a really good. If you want an extension of rivalry week and conference championship week, that's going to be the game for you.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for mentioning that one, Ian. I know the ones that we had were like the prime focus for the playoff, but there still is other football outside of the playoff game. So yes, Ian is our G5 wizard. He knows all about the G5 team. So, okay, that is it. That's the show. We got to 1,500 subscribers the other day, so I'm really stoked. Thank you for all for following. Keep helping us out. Like, subscribe, comment, follow, all of it, share. And that's the show. We'll talk to you on Sunday morning. Take care. Enjoy these games.